So, yesterday, Wizards had their monthly Twitch stream, and they had some announcements, and one of those announcements was that Game Night is back, and I believe the date is October 14th when this is coming out, but most importantly, there are 5 new cards from this product, and well, we've got some pretty exciting commanders. So, although I was not expecting to be doing any quick takes until the next set comes out, well, here we are. So the commander that I'm tackling on this episode is Imaryll Elfhame Elite. And sometimes when products are pretty far out, Wizards really doesn't want to share the most crisp and clear images for whatever reason. Anyways, so I just made a custom version of this on MTG.design to make it easier to discuss. Regardless, Imaryll is a 3/3 elf warrior that costs 2 green, and it has... Whenever Imaryll attacks, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of other elves you control. And you may have Imaryll assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So this is a very simple and straightforward commander, but one that, well, can hit incredibly hard. Elves are one of the most popular tribes out there and have a ton of support. I mean, an absurd amount of support. I think they are currently the 3rd most popular tribe out there, and they were 2nd right before the Dungeons & Dragons set when we got a certain dragon that is already incredibly popular. Regardless, yeah, elves have a ton of fantastic support, and it's going to not take much time at all to just flood the board with a ton of elves and easily make this commander into a 2-shot KO, and of course there are plenty of ways to make this into a 1-shot KO. And yeah, that Thorn Elemental type effect of allowing you to just assign your combat damage as though you're not blocked is massive. I mean, that is better than Trample in many aspects. Because who needs to take out creatures by, trampling over them when you can just actually take out the player by hitting them for lethal commander damage? So this commander packs quite the punch, has a ton of support, and is from a very, very, very popular tribe, so I can see players being really excited about this one. And if you're really excited about this one and want to get a jump start on this commander, well, make sure you keep in mind that there is a link in the description below to the list of cards I'm talking about on this episode, and sometimes when a new commander is spoiled, even when it's way, way in advance, well, certain cards can jump in price, so make sure you check that link out. And now with all that said, let's jump into those cards. One of the things elves are most known for are being fantastic mana dorks. I mean, Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, just 1/1 elves for 1, that tap for a green. Get them down early, get them down often, and just start getting off to the races and ramping right away. But of course, we've got even bigger dorks, mana dorks that is, with Llanowar Tribe that costs green, which of course is no issue, when it comes to mana fixing in a mono green deck. Regardless, it taps to add green. So this is an incredibly efficient mana dork, costing 3 and tapping for 3, and obviously a fantastic play. Turn 1 Elvish Mystic, turn 2 Llanowar Tribe, and then assuming you hit your turn 3 land drop, you've got access to 7 mana on turn 3? So yeah, obviously things can go incredibly quickly in an elf ball deck, and you can get your commander out and a ton of elves out very, very early, so you can start smacking opponents for a ton right away. But speaking of a ton, yeah, I mean, we've got mana dorks that can produce even more mana, like Priest of Titania, which can tap to add green to your mana pool for each elf on the battlefield. Not just your own, any elf on the battlefield, counting your opponents. But then for just 1 more mana, we've got Elvis Archrood, which can pump our elves, being an anthem. Other elf creatures you control get ++1, and it taps to add green for each elf we control. So obviously this can help our army, which is nice. It slightly pumps our commander more, which is obviously lovely. And yeah, being able to tap for a ton of mana can help us just dump a ton of elves on the battlefield very quickly. Like, Circle of Dreams Druid, which can basically tap for essentially the same amount in this deck. It taps to add green for each creature we control. And yeah, with an elf tribal deck, and with an elf ball deck, you're probably just going to have all elves. So yeah, basically the same thing, but again, there are a ton of elves out there that are fantastic mana dorks that can tap for an absurd amount of mana to just help us dump everything onto the field. I mean, just to name one more, Marwyn the Nurturer goes about this in a different way. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, you get a +1 counter on Marwyn, so she can become quite massive, and then she can tap that amount of green equal to her power. So obviously she can also be a massive threat, or, she can just be another way to dump an absurd amount of mana into your mana pool. But of course, on top of creating a massive amount of mana, we also have plenty of ways to create a massive amount of elves to pump our commander with things like Elvish Warmaster, Liz Alana Huntmaster, and Imperious Perfect. Elvish Warmaster says whenever one or more elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green elf creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. And we can also pay 5 green elves we control, get +2/+2 and gain Death Touch until end of turn, and that is obviously a very nice thing to have, but obviously more importantly, being able to create more and more elves on each of our turns is huge. Now, while that one is limited to 1 elf per turn, Liz Alana Huntmaster is not. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So things can get pretty out of control with that. Next up, Imperious Perfect says, other elf creatures you control get ++1, and by paying a green, we can tap to create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So another nice Anthem effect, which is, lovely, but more importantly, we can create a ton of tokens throughout the game with this to build up our army and make our commander massive on attack. Moving on, speaking of massive armies, let's talk about Wolverine Riders. It says at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under control, you gain life equal to its toughness. The life gain is nice, but obviously more importantly, we get an elf warrior on every single upkeep, not just our own. So that's 4 elves with each trip around the table in a multiplayer game like Commander, and yeah, our army can become massive in absolutely no time with this. Speaking of which, we can also double up our army with 1 spell with Elvish Promenade. It says create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. So yeah, for just 4 mana, doubling up our entire army and doubling up our commander's benefit from that attack trigger is massive. In many circumstances, this can push our commander over the edge into becoming a one-shot KO. Speaking of which, we can also help get our commander there with cards like Timberwatch Elf and Immaculate Magistrate. Timberwatch Elf has tap target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X the number of elves on the battlefield. Again, keep in mind this counts any elves, including any our opponents have, but yeah, basically this is just a way to essentially double up our commander's attack trigger at the very least. And of course, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, with all these tap effects, including the mana dorks, obviously, including ways to untap our creatures can obviously be massive as well. So yeah, if we can tap this more than once, we can very easily turn our commander into a one-shot KO. And we can even do so permanently with something like Immaculate Magistrate, which says, tap put a +1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. So unlike Timberwatch Elf, this just counts our elves, but still, obviously, in Elf Tribal deck, we're going to have a ton of elves in play. And yeah, those counters are permanent, so we're going to make our commander absolutely massive and very easily turn our commander into a one-shot KO. That again does not matter if our opponents have a massive army and they can block. It doesn't matter. We can just push the damage through, Thorn Elemental style. Now, of course, there are other ways to turn our commander into a one-shot KO with things like Fire Shrieker and even Inquisitor's Flail. Fire Shrieker is a very simple equipment. Equipped creature has double strike. So with this attached to our commander, as long as we've got enough elves in play to get to, 11 power with our commander on that attack, that's going to be a one-shot KO going through that double strike, hitting for 22 commander damage. And then Inquisitor's Flail is somewhat similar. It says if a equipped creature would deal combat damage, it deals double that damage instead. And if another creature deal combat damage to a equipped creature, it deals double that damage to a equipped creature instead. So this is a higher risk card, obviously, again, doubling up the damage that's dealt to our commander, but still, it doubles up the damage that our commander is doing as well, so it can push that damage through to an amount that is lethal. I mean, at the very least, with very little setup, our commander is going to easily be a 2-shot KO in most circumstances. And I mean, even though we do have, that Thorn Elemental style of pushing damage through, something like Elvish Champion can help our commander just actually get through. It says other elf creatures get +1 and have Forest Walk. So of course, again, a nice additional anthem, but more importantly, Forest Walk can be lethal against players that have Forest because, hey, now you can't block. A really nice way to protect our commander and actually to get our entire army through if we need to. And speaking of protecting our commander, a card like Swiftfoot Boots does double duty in this deck. It says equipped creature has hexproof and haste. So our commander is not only protected, and we can also still target our commander again with those ways to pump it, but of course on top of that, haste allows us to just swing right away. Which of course can help our commander be lethal right away and out of nowhere. But since we are dependent on building up such a big board state, of course cards like Heroic Intervention and Rapid Vigor can come in huge. Heroic Intervention says permanent you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and Rapid Vigor says regenerate each creature you control. Regardless, again, even if our board is dealt with, of course we can rebuild very quickly, but still, protecting your board is very important to just, keep you where you're at. And of course, it's also important with a deck like this to not run out of fuel, so we're also going to be running a lot of ways to draw a lot of cards with cards like Beast Whisperer, Shamanic Revelation, and Rishkar's Expertise. Beast Whisperer says, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card, and yeah, it's going to happen plenty of times with this deck. Shamanic Revelation says, draw a card for each creature you control, and you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Now that life gain is a nice additional benefit, but the main thing is, yeah, this can draw us an absurd amount of cards in no time. Speaking of which, after we attack with our commander in our second main phase, casting Rishkar's Expertise can be massive. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Now, obviously, you can cast this in your first main phase, but if you know your commander is going to survive combat and it's going to get massive, why not cast it in second main to just draw a crazy amount of cards? But now this episode is wrapping up. I'm going to give you my final thoughts on Imaryll Elfhame Elite. Yeah, I think a lot of players are going to be really excited about this commander. Again, this commander is, very simple and straightforward. Hey, get a lot of elves out into play, and your commander will do the rest of the work for you. Just swing out, hit someone for a ton of damage, and even if they try to block with a massive army, it doesn't matter. You push that damage through. Your opponent might have the best setup of all time and think they're prepared for everything, and then all of a sudden you turn your commander into a one-shot KO, and it doesn't matter what they do. Of course, this tribe is already very popular. It has a ton of support, so there's a lot of very powerful things that you can do with it. And again, if you're interested in this commander, make sure you check out that link in the description below to the list of the cards I talked about on this episode because, well, when new commanders are spoiled, even if they're spoiled way in advance, sometimes certain cards go up in price because, well, players are excited about building around it. And of course, make sure you're staying tuned to even more quick takes on this channel. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are. And as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.